Oh, my love. Oh, everyone say hi to Lucy again. Why are you sitting like that? She looks like a little penguin. Say hi. I love you. Hi, welcome back. My name is Yuna, and this is my channel where I talk about books. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite things to do with books, and that is rereading. I feel like in today's day and age, there's such a pressure to read as many books as you can, to keep up with trends, to be reading the newest releases. It feels like rereading has fallen a bit out of fashion. And that makes me so sad because I love rereading books. I know some people might be like, I've already read this book. I know what happens. What's the point in rereading? What's the satisfaction in that? For me, I love revisiting books that I've already read because I think that the second time around, you might pick up on things that you didn't notice the first time, or rereading a book, knowing where the author is taking you, you might see clues, or you might see things that the author was alluding to or suggesting that you didn't realize were important the first time around. And I love having that new experience. So I personally love to reread books. And for 2026, I've picked a handful of my favorite. I think I have eight books / series that I would like to revisit. Now, some of these books, it's been quite a while. I think I've read them over 10 years ago. And for some of them more recently, it's still about 5 or 6 years ago that I read these books. So I really don't remember them super well. I remember the overall plot and I remember the characters, but it's pretty hazy, which I think makes it even more exciting because it feels like a fresh experience, even if I know what's going to happen. What will be especially interesting, I think, is seeing how these books have held up. Since it has been so long since I've read them, I've changed my preferences, my tastes have changed. I hope that I've matured as a reader and my critical thinking skills have developed. So who knows if they're going to hit the same the second time around, because when I read these books, I probably would have told you that they were my favorite, or at least in top 3 favorites at the time. I don't know if it'll be the same this time around, but I am excited to find out. I'm thinking maybe if I do get to all these books this year, perhaps towards the end of the year, I'll do a video going back and saying whether or not I did still enjoy them, whether they did still hit the same, or whether I've kind of grown out of these books and why. Let's get started with the first book, which actually I've seen having a bit of a resurgence on the internet. I've seen people picking it up for the first time and recommending it and loving it, which gives me hope that even on a reread, I'm still gonna love it. And that book is Pachinko by Min-jin Lee. Pachinko is a historical fiction novel set in the early 1900s, and it follows a Korean family living in Japan. It starts with Sunja, who's a teenage girl in Korea, and after a series of events, she ends up moving to Japan with her new husband, and the story from there follows 4 generations of her family as they are living and growing up in this place, and you see them with a community of Korean people, I believe, who are living in Japan. And I find that so interesting because, I'm Korean and I've read several books, historical fiction books or fantasy books based on the Japanese occupation of Korea, and you are following characters who are living under that brutal regime and what that experience was like. But I think this is the only book that I've read that focuses on Koreans living in Japan. The book is named after pachinko, which is a game. It's a game of chance, and it is symbolic of the unpredictable and sort of merciless nature of life and the events that guide people's lives and their relationships and their destinies. And I don't remember very much about this book in terms of prose, in terms of the characters, other than Sunja, really. I don't really remember what happens. So I'm really excited. It's going to be pretty much like a first read for me. These complex and passionate characters survive and thrive against the indifferent arc of history. That little bit, the indifferent arc of history, I do remember that sort of unpredictable, indifferent, merciless aspect of life being a huge part of this book. I'm very excited to get back to it. And like I said, it's having a bit of a resurgence, which gives me hope that I will enjoy it the second time around. All right, so next I'm going to talk about 2 books kind of simultaneously because they're by the same author. I read them around the same time, again, around 6 or 5 years ago. And I think when I do the reread, I'll read them pretty close together. Those books are Song of Achilles and Circe by Madeline Miller. Now, I don't know if I'm supposed to say Kirka. I think maybe the sort of traditional Greek way of saying it would have been Kirka, but I think most people are saying Circe. For those of you who don't know, these are both retellings of very popular, well-known Greek characters. Now, the Song of Achilles is a retelling of the Trojan War from the point of view of Patroclus. The story starts with Patroclus as a little wee lad as he meets and grows up with and trains with and falls in love with Achilles. Now, this is not Brad Pitt's Achilles. Madeline Miller is not a coward. They are not cousins. They are lovers. They are lovers. They are gay and they're lovers. They grow up together, they fall in love, and they eventually leave for Troy. Now, anyone who knows anything about the Trojan War or has seen the movie knows how this story ends. But I will say that even knowing that how the story was going to end, I thought that this was just such a devastating and beautiful love story, and I had such an incredible time. I'm very scared that I won't like it as much the second time around, but I have faith. If any of you have played the video game Hades, I was on a mission to reunite Achilles and Patroclus. The whole rest of the game, the plot, whatever else kind of fell away from me, and I was like, I need to get these two gays together. That's an aside, but if you know, you know. Circe is about the titular character Circe, who is the daughter of the sun god Helios. Circe is a character that is generally known and depicted as a villain in other people's stories like the Odyssey. But here we follow her life from being a young child, again, as the daughter of Helios. We go through her banishment with her to the island. We see her growing into her power and developing her witchcraft. We follow her as she encounters many famous characters like the Minotaur or Daedalus and, of course, Odysseus. From what I remember, this was a bit of a slower read than Song of Achilles, but I also loved it just as much. One of the great strengths of both of these books was the humanizing way that Madeline Miller wrote about these characters that are larger than life figures from Greek mythology. They were just, for me, so believable as characters. But I think the greatest strength of these two books and the reason that I loved them so much the first time around was Madeline Miller's exquisite prose. She just had such emotionally rich, descriptive, exquisite prose, and I was hanging on every line. I was eating up the pages. I just really clicked with her writing style, and that's what I remember most vividly about my reading experience. So I'm very hopeful that I will still enjoy these a second time around. I'm pretty confident I'm still going to love these on a reread, so I am very much looking forward to getting to these two. I don't know how people do these long, like 2-3 hour podcasts. My throat is dead after like 10 minutes of talking. Next book is one that I own physically, but I couldn't find it for this video. I think I lent it to a friend and haven't gotten it back. I thought I did, but I cannot find it, so I'll have to track it down. I'll put it on the screen, and it is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This is a nonfiction book written by an indigenous botanist, and the book combines botany, indigenous wisdom, indigenous traditions. It's a look at our current relationship with the rest of the natural world and what it could be and perhaps should be instead. I thought this was such a beautiful and warm invitation to think about the wisdom of other living beings, whether those are plants or animals, and think about their generosity and open your eyes to the gifts that they want to share with you, and to envision a relationship with the natural world that is more reciprocal. I remember a part of the book where Robin is talking about how her community, I believe it's her community, how they refer to animals as people. You know, they talk about them as the bear people or the beaver people or the deer people. And that's just so illustrative of how we should be thinking about the natural world and other species as being on a level with people. We like to think as human beings that we are the most important part of the story, that we are central to the narrative of this world, and it's just not the case. This book was such a beautiful illustration of that. I think for my reread, I would like to also use the audiobook. When I read the book the first time, I wasn't doing audiobooks at all, but I heard that Robin is the narrator for the book. People have said it's such a warm, incredible experience to listen to her narrate her own words, and so I will absolutely be checking out or buying the audiobook for that. Now we're going to talk about a book that I'm a little nervous to reread. When I first read this book, I was absolutely enraptured by it, and I believe I told several people that it was my favorite book. I've recommended it to many people, and that book is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. Doerr? We'll go with Dor. I've lost a dust jacket sometime in the 10 years since I've read this book, but I swear to you, it is All the Light We Cannot See. This is a historical fiction set during World War II, and we follow two main characters. One is Marie, who is a blind French girl, and the other is Werner, who is a German orphan who I believe is recruited into the Nazi forces. Marie has a miniature model of Paris, or the town that she is in, which was gifted to her by her father. And Werner has this gift for technology, specifically radios. He's very good at breaking them apart and putting them back together. And those two things become very important for the plot. And as the book progresses, it's the story of how their lives are interwoven and how the events of their lives culminate into this big collision. At the time that I read this book, I was engrossed in it. I was moved by it. I thought it was excellent. I thought that the prose was lovely. I thought that the way that the stories and lives of the two main characters ended up being so connected was really satisfying to read. In recent years, I think after the Netflix show came out, I was hearing criticisms about the sort of sympathetic portrayal of the Nazi soldiers and the German characters, and also criticisms about the portrayal of blindness with Marie, the blind character. These were things that didn't stand out to me at the time that I read the books, but I wouldn't be surprised if on a reread I agreed with those criticisms, because I did read his more recent release, Cloud Cuckoo Land, and while I thought it was well written, I had some serious criticisms about how some of the characters and their actions were portrayed or justified. I'm going to go into it with an open mind but a critical eye, and I just wouldn't be surprised if I thought that it didn't quite live up to the hype that I have in my head for it, and if I found that some of the portrayals were problematic. If I make that sort of wrap-up video at the end of the year, I will report back and let you know what I think. We've made it to the last book, which is really a series that I'm going to talk about before I throw up some honorable mentions. These are also books that I'm worried won't live up to the pedestal and the nostalgia factor, but for a different reason. When I first read these books over 10 years ago, I was doing it with one of my best friends. We were buddy reading, we were in the hype, we were making playlists for each of the characters, we were sending each other fanfics, like we were deep in the love of these books and the experience. I'm talking about none other than The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. Is that how you say it? Stiefvater? It is a 4-book series. It starts with the Raven Boys, we have the Dream Thieves, Blue Lily, Lily Blue, and the Raven King. So this story follows 5 main characters. One is Blue Sergeant, a teenage girl, and 4 boys from a elite private school in rural Virginia, and the boys are referred to as the Raven Boys. Once these characters come together, they decide to go on a quest to find the resting place of, my hand hurts, resting place of this mythical Welsh king Glendower. Let me tell you, and I can't be alone with this, I had a whole brain fart when I found out that you pronounce the king's name Glendower. It's spelled Glendower, I think, which you would think is Glendower. No, it's Glendower. Anyway, so these 5 characters go on this quest, and there's all different kinds of magic. There's dream magic, there's ley lines, there's psychics, there's ghosts, and Blue lives in a house full of women, including her mom, who have magical powers and are very eccentric and bizarre. Now, from what I remember, this series had 2 main strengths for me. One being the characters and their relationships. I'm just weak for a found family. I'm weak for a group of friends who are deeply platonically in love with each other. And there is some non-platonic romance, but there's a line, I believe, in the first book where Maggie's saying that these 4 boys and Blue are just also obsessed with each other and love each other so dearly. And I'm weak for that kind of thing. So I love the characters and their relationships. And you do get introduced to other secondary characters as you go along. And I remember enjoying most of them a lot. But if my memory isn't failing me, the greatest strength of this series is Maggie's ability to create an atmosphere. The books are so eerie and atmospheric and hazy and otherworldly, and I just really fell into the vibes of these books. I think that the plot towards the end ended up getting a bit messy or convoluted. I don't fully remember, but it really was just such an experience. I was admittedly probably a bit blind to issues with the plot or pacing because I was so invested in the characters and because I was just swept away again in the vibes of the books. This is a YA series, and since I first read them, I have mostly moved away from YA. I do read some, but it's just not my main genre, and I don't think that it quite resonates with me as it used to. So I'm just so worried because these have such a special place in my memory and nostalgia and my heart, and I don't want to ruin that by having a less than spectacular reread. Part of me wants to protect the memory of reading these books and how sacred they were to me at the time, but I do want to revisit the series, and I'm particularly excited to get to book 2 because this is probably my favorite book in the series. If you know, you know. So fingers crossed that I still have a good time even if I have some criticisms. All right, so those are all the books that I am prioritizing to reread in 2026, but I do have two more series that I would like to get to if I have a chance, and those are the Anne of Green Gables series and the Lord of the Rings. Now, Anne of Green Gables, I have physically, they're just not here with me. I read these when I was maybe in middle school, maybe in elementary school. I don't remember exactly, but I love these books so much, and I have memories of my parents reading me the stories in Korean when I was very young. So there's such a nostalgia factor, and I think of them so fondly. For those of you who don't know, I believe it's an 8-book series, and it starts with Anne when she is very, very young and follows her through her life into adulthood. I think that the last 2 books are actually about her children. It might be the last book or last 2, but I know at least one of them follows her daughter. They're pretty short and easy reads from what I remember, so I should have time to get to them. I'm going to try and squeeze them in. The other series I mentioned is Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I read or tried to read these books, I believe, when I was in maybe middle school or potentially high school. I was very young, and I think a lot of it went over my head. I read them, but honestly, if you ask me, I might as well say I haven't read them because I don't remember anything about the books. I've seen the movies and I know the story, so it's not like I don't know what happens in the series, but essentially it feels like I've never read these books because I don't remember anything and nothing really stuck. So I'm going to try again, if I have time this year, to get through The Lord of the Rings and maybe The Hobbit. I don't know if I really care to reread The Hobbit, but I will at least try to get to the other 3. And that was my list of old favorites that I would like to reread and revisit in 2026 and see how they hold up and see if I still love them just as much on a reread. If you have any books that you want to reread or revisit, let me know what they are. And if you have read any of these books recently or in the past and have thoughts, please share. I love yapping about my favorites, new and old. I'm pretty sure that the next few videos are going to be lists of favorite books by genres, but until that comes out, you can also find me on Instagram. I just made an Instagram page with the same name. But until then, happy reading, and I'll see you in the next one.